Nathan and Courtney Joyce. We've got on a 300 cow farm near Muir in Taranaki. We've leased this farm for 4 years. We're in about our 8th season dairy farming. We've got a young family on the farm, 3 young kids. And yeah, we believe it's an awesome place to bring up our family, and it's a great lifestyle. We believe keeping the farm simple and running it well is the key to success in our business. Also having the farm well staffed and providing good infrastructure. We're really lucky here. We're on good land that is very profitable. It's basically, if you look after the land and you know, put the fertiliser on at the right times, you can really do well and keep the business simple. Let the grass do the work. Let the cows put the milk in the vat, and that's really what we try and focus on. Is yeah, try not to overcomplicate things, and create an environment that's really enjoyable for people to turn up and work in. Our goals for our farming career, we started about 8 years ago, and right from the start, Courtney and I had a big drive to get to farm ownership. So we started on my parents' farm as contract milkers, and we've worked our way up. Went 50-50 and started employee staff. We initially started with the manager on the farm at home when we took on our second dairy farm here, the lease farm. We've now been able to progress him to a contract milking role, and generally this is what we're trying to do within our business: grow people and make sure that they keep learning. So now we've just realised that dream. Next season we are going to take over a dairy farm which we have purchased with the huge support of both of our families, it's right next door to our lease farm, so we're able to you know, grow the business and have a bit of scale there where we can run the farms together. So on the lease farm here, we've got an annual target of producing around 130,000 milk solids. We try and milk twice a day right the way through until dry off. In extreme cases and droughts and that, we have gone once a day, but really only one season we've had to do that. Yeah, big emphasis on feeding cows well and seeing healthy and content cows. We want happy staff on the farm, ensuring that they've got a place where they feel like they belong and can offer you know, their decision making into the business. You know, we're making sure that we want a very safe workplace for them to turn up to, where they feel like they can do the job without tripping over things. We try and keep things tidy and you know, run a good ship. So our reproduction, we really try and keep things simple. We do around about 11 weeks of mating, no intervention. We do about 4.5–5 weeks AB at the start. Big emphasis on feeding cows well and trying to get our heat detection, put a lot of emphasis on that as well, and train staff up to make sure that you know, they're out in the paddock checking cows and observing as much as possible and having good recording processes in place. Feeding cows, I've grown up from a young age with Dad on the farm, knowing that to get that milk in the vat, you've got to utilise every blade of grass on the farm, and we try and limit the wastage. So we're constantly assessing our pastures and coming up with plans. We're thinking ahead from the start of the season, doing feed budgets and carry out you know, planning with our spring rotation planner, involve our staff and all of that, right down to the day-to-day stuff where we're having a look at post-grazing residuals and making sure that we're hitting targets. We try and get our staff to have ownership in pasture management and get them to make some of those decisions. To basically, we want the grass going in the vat, so we've got a grass into vat mentality. And something that I've just got into recently is trying to follow the lean principles. So yeah, just making sure that the farm is as efficient as possible, and having processes and systems in place for staff to follow. Our choices going forward is probably how we've developed our businesses. I've moved out of a hands-on role, being in the cowshed every day, to making sure that the staff's farmed well, the farm is staffed well, and that they run a lot of the day-to-day things, and I'm more into the business side of things, making bigger decisions. I'm still there a lot during the day for support on the end of phone and things like that. Yeah, so 4 years ago, when we took on this farm, we knew there'd be a lot of unknowns in terms of the costs involved in leasing a farm, and we really have learned a lot over 4 years. At the start, one of our main goals was to try and keep our farm working expenses as low as possible, to make sure that we were going to come in and make a profit. What we have seen over that 4 years is a slight increase in our farm working expenses, and hence our break-even milk price has gone up. I've changed the system slightly as we've moved through. I've put a little bit more feed in, but not a huge amount. We've got it to a level where the cows are fully fed, and we can milk our cows twice a day right the way through the season. What I've seen though in the last 6 to 8 months with everything that we see around the country is inflation. We've seen a huge lift in prices, fuel, fertiliser, even wages, things like that. As dairy farmers, we have to ride that out and be willing to take a bit of a hit there, but the thing that we do need to be careful with is making sure that our profit is still coming out the bottom. So, there are some costs that we control. There's a lot that we can't control, so we just have to ride through that. We had a reasonably tough spring that we've just been through too, so we had to buy in quite a bit of feed, and that's probably skewed our lift in farm working expenses. Another one that I wanted to touch on at the moment is, we're seeing a big lift in the milk price. One thing that we've decided to do as a business is not change our systems to maximise the gains in milk price. We've decided to try and carry on the way we are, and really trust in our systems to be a resilient business, control our costs, and hopefully ride the ups and downs, and in the end of the day, still be a profitable business. We've really tried to pay debt off when we can over the last 7 years. We've been quite aggressive with that, and we believe that that has helped us move towards purchasing our first dairy farm. It's allowed us to build our equity, and basically, the way that inflation is going, it's a very good use of money by putting money into land at the moment rather than the bank. So that's what we've chosen to do to make sure that we are ready for a drop in milk price. Yeah. So there's a big question at the moment around future markets, milk price, interest rates. What are we going to do? At the moment, we haven't dabbled in any of that. We've just kept everything floating. But in the near future, that's something that we seriously need to think about, is looking at fixing a portion of milk in, and also interest rates, as we're going to see an increase potentially. At this stage, we're keeping things floating.
Yeah, so right now we have a very positive milk price, and long may that continue. However, we know from 2014-15 how quickly change can happen. And in fact, the expenses, we know from the Economics Farm Survey, expenses went up $400 a hectare going into the peak milk price, and then after that, those costs came out much more slowly. So it is tricky to reverse some of those costs that have been put into a business. So we know that there's three things that are very important to have a profitable and resilient business. And the first of those is pasture harvest. So you want to take your land, turn that into grass as well as possible, and then turn that into milk rather than buying milk through additional inputs. The second one is we know that low costs are quite important, and in a simple system, you have the maximum opportunity to keep those costs at a reasonable level. And we know from the economic farm survey data, which shows that if you think about 4 farmers and you rank those on cost per kilo of milk solids, the highest cost farmer to the lowest cost farmer, that difference is more than $1 per kilo of milk solids. So if you're talking about 100,000 kilo milk solid farm, being in that lower cost category, that's the opportunity to take $100,000 more out of that business for your own benefit. And the third item being disciplined capital investment. So the last couple of years have provided that opportunity to retire some debt down to potentially more sustainable levels. There are other sensible uses of the money, for example, keeping up with regulatory requirements, such as for effluent or other needs, but also what investments might be considered useful to make the business more resilient. Are there opportunities to really bed in that cash flow opportunity going forwards?
Yeah, so what we're seeing at the moment is in the workforce is a big change. Obviously, 2 or 3 years ago, we were able to keep bringing migrant workers in and things like that, but there's been a big change in that. There's a limited amount of good labour out there at the moment. So my view is, and I've already touched on it, we really need to look after these guys and keep them in the system. Keep teaching them our ideas and farming, and try and get them to progress through the industry. The guys that are keen and willing to learn, those are the ones that'll serve your business well, and obviously that's going to help them progress through their life. So yeah, it is really important that we look after people, because they are your business at the end of the day. So yeah, strategies for retaining staff and dealing with shortages. I guess again it comes back to us keeping it really simple and having good systems in place. My view is staff want to turn up and be able to add value to the farm. For them to be able to add value, we need to have really good plans set up for them to be able to do their job. Also, we need to provide good infrastructure and good machinery. So when they hop on a tractor, you want them to be able to go and feed out and go and do the job and not be battling with things. So that comes down to, we've just employed new staff in the last 6 months, and they had a really great idea of having a tow behind pasture meter on the farm. So I was absolutely open to that idea. We purchased one second-hand off Trade Me and got it in the system, and it's just made things that much more efficient. We're able to do that, come back, have a weekly meeting, set a plan for the week, and they really understand what is going on. So I think knowing your business well, and then also your staff buying into your business and knowing the system, that's really important. And they go home at the end of the day happy. And yeah, everything's all good. The main thing is you want to create a really clear workforce, workplace where there's no confusion and things are simple. Yeah. A few more decisions that we're sort of working towards in our business is we want to look after our staff really well, pay them competitive wage, and make sure that the infrastructure that they are working in is infrastructure that you'd want to work in yourself. Also, the housing needs to be warm and a nice place to go home at the end of the day and light the fire, things like that. Another thing is we really want to be highly organised and make sure that everything's on the farm that the staff need to run it from day to day. Thinking ahead and making sure that materials are there, there's no gaps in feed and things like that. So we're constantly communicating week to week, day to day, and ensuring that there's a good plan in place.
In the last year, the sector's been working on a dairy workforce resilience plan, which will be launched in end of May 2022. What we've identified through that is that there's 3 key focus areas that we should work on to ensure we do have that resilient workforce that we need. The first of those is actually to reduce our reliance on people, and that's because we don't see a flood of people walking towards dairy that haven't been there before. The second one is to bring in people through different pipelines, so broaden the scope of people that's been available. 2 of the obvious examples are around Māori and Pacifica. So Māori represent 11% of the dairy workforce, but 18% of the New Zealand population, and Pacifica is only 1% of the dairy workforce and yet 8% of the New Zealand population. And then the third area is we're calling Shape Up, and that's around the dairy farm jobs being competitive and attractive compared to other sectors. So that's all about workplace conditions. Some of the most feedback we get from employees is around feeling, confident in their jobs really quickly. And one of the best ways of doing that is running simple systems and teaching them early on so that they can become a master in something. Ways that we see farmers doing that is often writing really good procedures, but then not just leaving that procedure obviously to be written, but rather to talk the person through it, demonstrate it, but then leave that as a record, ideally including pictures, so that they can then master it in their own time. The employees that get given that type of training when they start on farm, they quickly become confident and competent at those small tasks. And then that encourages a really good employee relationship, because the levels of trust increase between both parties. So it's really cool when we see farmers embracing that simple as best system, especially at the beginning of employment. So offering competitive salary packages is obviously really important to both attract and retain people, but the soft skills that go alongside being a good employer actually is what most employees value the most. So top of them is being listened to, and particularly around what they are hoping to learn and how that employee can achieve their own career goals. So what we're hoping is that people would sit down regularly, talk with their employees, understand what they're hoping to achieve in the next 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and 5 years, and then put a plan in place to try and achieve that. In the dairy sector, of course, we always talk about we talk about career pathways a lot, but actually we just need to moderate often how we do that, because there is an overriding assumption that everybody is wanting farm ownership or business ownership, and that's not true. The surveys tell us that that's not true, and so we need to put in place career paths where people might be employees for life. Career paths where people can be farm assistants for life and understand a bit more holistically what people are wanting to achieve in their own life goals. So earlier I talked about Shape Up being one of the focus areas, and this is one that's very strongly within a farmer's control. So any farmer can make the decision tomorrow to be a better employer and to offer a job that people will hopefully end up fighting for. There's probably 2 key areas that we'd like people to see on, and that's sort of the base package. So the sort of the legal stuff being well above the line, and in fact, not just above the line, but competitive to other sectors. But also it's about like the way that we talk to people, the way we listen to people, the interactions we have with them, the way that we lead by example, and the opportunities we offer them on farm.
So thanks for joining us today. We'd really like you to come back in late September this year and join us at our field day in Muir in Taranaki, where we try and turn pasture into profit.